everyone, I'm so excited to be with you guys this week again for our next tip. So we're just going to get right into it because this week's tip is a little different than what you might think. So when I think about and talk about transition with women, no matter what transition women are in, the topic of consistency always comes up. If you're a mom, the topic of consistency comes up when talking about bedtime routines, nap times, what to do during the day, morning times, trying to get the kids out of the house, life transitions. We're talking about how do I make this work with the rest of my schedule? Is this something else that I can afford to incorporate into my current busy life? How do I realistically make these things work? So I'm going to tell you how to make it work. And the tip for this week is consistency. Consistency is so important in life. Now, we know that things happen and sometimes things are not consistent. And some people say that they can function without consistency. But let's look at the definition of consistency. And I pulled a few different definitions because some of the definitions are actually pretty interesting. So it says here that consistency is the steadfast adherence to the same principle, course, or form. There is a consistency in his pattern of behavior. Another definition says that consistency is the agreement, harmony, or compatibility, especially correspondence or uniformity among parts of something complex, of a complex thing. So when you hear consistency that way, as it's defined and not necessarily the definition that we put upon consistency, it sounds less like a rule-bound, stringent thing, doesn't it? It sounds more like, especially in the first definition where it says a steadfast adherence to the same principles, course, or form. To me, that doesn't sound like, okay, I'm going to have to do it the same way every morning, because let's be realistic. Every morning looks different to everybody, and everybody's every day is different. So, to say that tomorrow morning is going to look exactly like this morning is a little presumptuous. Especially if you have children, especially if you have bosses that call you at unknown hours, especially if you have clients that are trying to get in contact with you at times when you don't know. Every morning is going to look different. Every evening might look different. But if you are steadfast in your adherence to the same principles, course, or form, what that looks more like is, I have a principle or course that I'm on, and that's the course that I'm focusing on, whether or not I'm in a transition of my life. So if I abide by a certain principle, then that is what's going to be steadfast. That's what I'm going to adhere by. If I have chosen a course of action, or if I have chosen a plan, then I'm going to stick as closely to that as possible so that my life flows as smoothly as possible, no matter what transition I'm going through. In terms of a schedule, which, and I've said this before, I'm a pretty routine-based person. I can get stuck in a routine. But what's helpful about that, and what's helpful about people who stick to routines, is not necessarily that their lives are so much better or easier, but when transition comes, if you're able to look at a life transition and pick it apart and then put it back together with the principles that you use to create the routine or schedule that you're in, it becomes so much more easier to incorporate the new thing into your life. So if you have a course of action already, and the plan is not to change that course of action, but to transition into something else or to add something into your life, then figuring out how to fit it around an already existing schedule is a lot easier than trying to fit it into chaos. So, I know somebody somewhere is going to say that it's impossible to be consistent all the time and it's just unrealistic with my life and how things work. I'm here to tell you that it is not. Because what I'm saying is not to hold yourself to such a constricted schedule that you're not able to live. It's actually the exact opposite. You can give yourself the flexibility to do whatever you want. But when you are being consistent in your life in general, it's so much easier and comforting to come back to a system or a course of action or a principle when you feel like things have kind of been out of whack for a while, when you feel like, you know, during this transition things have kind of just been crazy. It's so much easier when you have developed a pattern of behavior, like the definition said, that you can come back to. So always give yourself room to grow. Always leave room for mistakes, of course. But make sure that consistency is what keeps you grounded and rooted, so that when you're in these life transitions, whether big or small, you can adapt as easily as possible. Even though it's still going to be difficult, consistency is sort of like the glue that holds transition together. If this video was helpful for you, remember to like it and share it with all of your friends. And of course, don't forget to join our Facebook group and follow me on Instagram at Ambient Growth Coach. All of the links will be in the description box. Until next time, be well, guys.